gosh, I'm Dane, I'm an alcoholic.
Dane.
Thank you for making the meeting possible and thank you for sharing with me. I'm extremely nervous. I almost want to cry, that's how nervous I am. But I think a part of that is also I'm so grateful today to be here and to be able to share my experience, strength and hope with you guys, because I never thought something like this, I'm crying already, something like this would be possible for my life, you know. I thought I was going to die alone, man, in the street somewhere, on the bathroom floor, and someone was going to find me, just end up like those really sad people. But as my God would have it, it didn't, and I found this program which like saved my life and continues to save my life every day. You know, like it's like all the shit I obsessed around what I wanted to tell you guys, it just left me. So I'm still extremely nervous, but I think what I'll just do is share my experience, like what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. So I'll start from the beginning and just tell you a bit about my childhood, and that is that I was not a very happy child. I cried a lot. I know when I was like 3 years old, my mom even, she like left me in the house and went for a drive just to get away from the crying, because I was very unhappy. I didn't seem to want to be here at all, you know, and that reigned true through my life until I found recovery. And I grew up in a home that was very conditional love, you know. It was structured in a way that if you did good, you were good. Like if you behaved, you were a good girl. If you acted up, you were bad. Go to your room. If I had feelings or whatever, I never really could tell somebody, listen, I feel sad. What do I need to do with these feelings? Or I'm feeling this way. I was always just kind of told to just children should be seen and not heard kind of vibe, you know. So that is a large part of my conditioning that I still deal with today, but this program helps me a lot to deal with that. I was also sexually molested by my brother. Luckily, I can't remember those memories. I've buried them very deep, far away, and I quite prefer it that way, because I don't have to see him or deal with him. And but yeah, things like that did happen throughout my childhood, and my mom wasn't a very nice lady. She was married to my dad, obviously, and he kind of was never home. He was always working, and when he was home, he wasn't there in spirit. He was always somewhere else, or literally at work, and he ran like bars, and he was not in a very good business, to say the least. But I kind of grew up in bars as a kid as well, so it felt pretty normal to me to go into a bar, to sit around with older men, to do the gambling stuff, to get them coins, to play their pool. So it was like, it wasn't okay, you know, like I didn't grow up very okay. But what I realized recently as well is that my mother also was going through a lot, you know, dealing with 3 kids and a husband who was never there. Must have been so hard for her, and I could never really see that until I kind of went into the same cycle and did the exact same shit to my kids. But I realized that I had a disease of perception. So what I might have perceived and felt in my childhood wasn't always the truth, you know. I tend to perceive things selfishly and how do they affect me, and I struggle to see the bigger picture. So I've kept that in mind as well, and I've healed a lot in that area as well, in realizing that my mom only did the best that she could for me. I never went to bed hungry. I always had a house to sleep in. We went to school. There was some sort of normality that she tried to keep going, and for that I'm grateful to her, you know. So I got to kind of look at the facts of what my life was like too, and not just hone in on the negative, how I felt about it kind of stuff. And as I grew up through primary school, I never really had any friends. I was kind of shy, but I was more scared of people. I was scared of you. I didn't understand you. I couldn't do life already at such a young age. And I remember one like 12-year-old party or something. I was sitting there and looking at the other girls getting like cool drink and chips and laughing and talking, and I thought to myself, how the hell do they just do this? Like, I felt like I constantly had eyes on me, people were watching me, like waiting for me to do something wrong. I wasn't normal. I felt so different. I couldn't relate to them at all. And I did like this friend hopping thing where I was your friend for a term and I took what I needed from your personality and I sprinkled it on mine, and then I went to the next person and I borrowed and I stole from everybody's personalities to make up this thing that I called my own, you know. And that's how I pretty much carried on for me. Soon after, I went to high school and I had my first experience with alcohol. And something that I noticed in everybody's milestone shares, for some reason, once we hit that bottle, we tend to pass out. And my experience isn't any different from that. All I remember from that experience is that I drank some alcohol, suddenly I could play pool, and I was cool, and I didn't care what you thought about me, and I'm just living my life, and everything's funny, and here we go. And I think my friend and I cancelled about 7 or 8 bottles of her dad's bar. I mean, how I did not get alcohol poisoning, I don't know. But yeah, I got sorted. And my mom caught me and her mom caught me because we did this at her house, the master plan, getting drunk at the parents' house. But they caught us, and you know, as I lay there drunk on my friend's bed, my mom walks into the room, and in my mind, all I wanted to do is throw her a zap. I was like, that feeling, just like, you know, screw you, it's your fault, you've done this to me. Meanwhile, I wanted to get drunk. But the next morning, what really stands out to me and what I connected to when I went to treatment is the behavior around the drinking. And I remember so clearly the next morning feeling like crap, so hydrated, so hungover, and my mom picking me up and putting me in bed, giving me a glass of water. And she was like, I am not going to, your kids are hiding, or I'm not going to discipline you. Like, the way you're feeling, thank you, the way you're feeling right now is discipline enough. And what I did with that in my mind was, I was laughing. I was like, I'm going to do this again. I'm so going to do this again. And there it is, you know, my insanity, just straight after feeling like shit, feeling like I got away with it, and just being like, I'm going to do this again. You're actually stupid for not disciplining me, because I'm going to do this again, you might as well. I didn't say any of that, of course, I just thought it. And so the drinking began, and I drank, and I added some drugs eventually, and when I was around 16 years old, I moved back to my mother's house because I went to a boarding school at first. You know, my mom and I could not get along at all. My dad was never there. By that time, they were divorced. And we were standing in the kitchen one day fighting, and her best friend just went, why don't you just go to boarding school? And my mom and I both was like, how's yeah, like, this is such a cool solution to our problem. We just can't seem to get along at all. Let's just move away from each other a little bit. And then I really enjoyed boarding school. Like, on the one hand, it was really structured, and like, we wake up this time, we go to bed this time. And on the other hand, it was like such freedom. You know, I could just go party and get drunk, and as long as I was back at the boarding school at a certain time, according to them, everything was fine. You know, so playing within the rules, but not really, was kind of my thing. But eventually my mom moved to Toti, and she wanted me to go with. I didn't want to, and I resented her for most of my life for just taking me out of Heidelberg and bringing me here, because I didn't want to be near her. I didn't even really know my sisters, man. I had no relationships with my family at all. I loved staying with my dad because at his house I could do what I want. I could smoke cigarettes, I could go to bed late. You know, all that stuff that wasn't good for me, he kind of allowed because he was busy with his own life. But anyway, I came back, I made some friends, and then the drinking really started for me. And I remember on school nights, my mom would have like cups of wine, one white wine and one red wine in the kitchen. And I would walk from my room and I would take from the white wine and I would down the glass and I would pour another glass and I'd go back to my bedroom. I'd finish off that glass, I'd walk back and drink some of the red wine because they made me nice and sleepy. You know, I always had this problem where I couldn't sleep because my mind was so busy. My mind was just always racing. So I found that alcohol was a great stimulant to help me relax and go to sleep. And eventually I started mixing my mother's sleeping tablets in with that as well. And this is me at 16 years old. Like, clearly there's a problem there. But I kept this a secret. My friends didn't know. Nobody knew. I just stole the liquor and I drank the sleeping tablets. And that's how it went on really for most of my high school life. And partied a lot. I was a rebel. I didn't listen to my mom. I was never on time for curfew. I would stumble in the home at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I never really realized how tough this must have been for my mom, you know. I'm a mother today and I look at my kids and when they overstep the boundaries in their small little ways, I'm already hurt. So I can't even imagine what that kind of stuff must have done to her, to see her daughter destroy herself, especially at such a young age. But as a good alcoholic that I was, I thought moving away would solve all my problems. And I did a geographical to go stay with my father after school. I actually had a really nice relationship with the guy going during high school. But because of this promise that I made to myself that I'm going to move away as soon as I can to start a new life or whatever, I'm going to leave. So despite of my feelings for him and all of that, I moved anyway, and years later I hated myself for it because he was a really nice guy. But I did it nonetheless because I thought moving myself 600 kilometers away from everything that I knew was going to solve this whatever was going on inside of me. And I grew tired and I grew restless and discontent and very depressed as well. I've struggled with depression since leaving school a lot. I was always pretty depressed, you know, but I struggled a lot with it. I went the medication route and everything, but nothing really worked for me. All that worked for me then was my solution, was take a few drinks, feel better, and move on with life, you know. Not taking into account like what it does afterwards to me, let alone having a disease that feeds off of it. But so I stayed with my dad for a while and I studied. I actually thought about this the other day. I studied for almost a year at his house where I was a very good girl. I studied, I cooked, did it like so solidly, you know. I didn't really use that much. I would drink with him sometimes or his friends, but not kind of like a little break that I took, you know. But I soon grew bored, and I was bored. I was 18 years old. I wanted to live life, I wanted to experience things, and I wanted to get drunk and party and have a good time. So I found myself my first job, which was in a bar, and I started washing dishes there, and I worked my way up, and I became a bar lady, and it just escalated from there. You know, the partying, drinking scene, it was just my vibe, and I did all those things that we do when we drink and we lose ourselves and we drive drunk and we crash cars. Thank God I never ran over someone or crashed myself so bad that I ended up in hospital. Thank God for that, you know. But I did all of those things that we do so cleverly and so bravely. And then I met this guy, but before I met this guy, I went through a phase of blackouts. I realized in school even that when I drink too much, I black out, but when I start drinking, I can't really control how much I drink, or when I pick up that first drink, I never know where I'm going to end up. You know, and that really helped me later years to connect to the fact that I'm an alcoholic. That's one of the things that they say makes you an alcoholic, so I could be like, okay, tick it off, I got that one. But yeah, so I went through a period of heavily blacking out and like being a slut really, and just throwing my name away, and I couldn't hold my head up high anymore where I lived, which was with my dad. get out of there because I just couldn't live with myself anymore. You know, I've done all these things that I never wanted to do, yet I was still doing them, even though I didn't want to. I didn't know what to do. So I met this guy, the first guy that said that he'll go travel the world with me. We sold all our shit, and we got in the car and we went on a road trip, and we traveled a little bit through South Africa until our money ran out, and I had to phone my mum eventually and ask her to rescue me, like I always did, because she was my enabler, and she would always want to help her daughter who's struggling and does just not seem to get life. So I went back to her, I took the guy with me, and we proceeded to be in this very toxic relationship for a couple of years. And during this time I also found myself a new job. You know, the whole thing of setting up and starting over, I've done that so many times. By the time I arrived at treatment, I was kind of like done with all of that stuff, you know. I was like, I'm just going to live with my mom, it's okay. But anyway, we proceeded to have this very toxic relationship. Eventually I found out that he was on drugs. I tried to help him, and that's also very apparent in my life, that I always found these guys that I wanted to help or change or fix, you know. And I took him to see psychiatrists, and we actually went to the house on the hill because I wanted him to go there. And when I arrived there, I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful, I want to go here. But by that time I didn't really fully click what it was, and I just thought it was so pretty and the vibe was so nice. I always felt like I just needed to get away for a couple of months and just find myself or sort myself out. And in my mind, the fixing would always happen by myself in a cabin in the woods, just me figuring it all out in my head, you know, which would have been so the wrong thing to do. But anyway, I took him there. I tried to let him go there, but he didn't want to, because by that time I hadn't connected to, I also have a problem, you know. His problem was way worse than mine, so he needs the help first. I don't need help, I'm fine. I was working as a waitress, saving up for my holiday in Dubai, and I was like 22 or 23 years old, no ambition. My plan was to work there for a year just so that I could save enough money to go on a holiday to Dubai, which I did do, but after that I was like, okay, it's time to find a new job. I didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I didn't know any of that shit. So I kind of just had these mini goals, which was holidays overseas, and that's what I worked for. You know, but eventually he started getting abusive towards me, and he wouldn't seek the help, and I've decided I've had enough, and I left. And what did I do? What I do best is I packed up all my stuff and back to my dad I went. So many geographicals, always running from what's going on inside, never wanting to look at me, always wanting to fix the outside stuff so that I can feel okay inside. You know, like the big book talks about the actor and how we want to arrange the lights and the players and the stage, but it never seems to make us happy anyway. So I went to my dad and I met Neville, the father of my kids, and actually so embarrassing because I fell in love immediately, love at first sight, and he wasn't even facing me. I just saw this guy, this was my new guy, I liked him, and he didn't even like me at all. He treated me like shit. He wanted nothing to do with me, so I was like, challenge accepted, as if I haven't been through enough in my life already. You know, he was going to fix it all. And I got him, and it was truly the most painful time of my life. And today I can kind of thank God for it, because if I didn't go through all those experiences with him, if I didn't like ruin myself to the degree that I did, I wouldn't have connected so deeply to the fact that I have a disease and I'm destroying myself at all costs just to find that little bit of happiness, you know. But it was madness from the beginning. He was not good for me at all. Everybody warned me. I was like, he's a very good guy, because he showed me that one side that they want to show you, you know, when they want to draw you in or whatever. And he showed me his soft side. He shared his stuff with me, and I thought I was special and different. and that he was going to change and respect me and love me, even though he treated everybody around him like shit. And it's kind of cool that I've had that realization, because if I want to see what someone is like, I look at the way they treat everybody else around them. I don't look at the way that you treat your mother or this one. I look at the way that you treat the beggar next to the road, random cashier at the shop. Like, if you want to see what someone is like, see how they treat other normal people. They don't even have to mean something to them. But anyway, it was really hard and tough, and eventually we landed up, obviously my drinking and my using increased, because drugs are a major part of the alcoholic part of me. You know, I heard this share once, and this guy said, I was an alcoholic, then someone gave me drugs, and I proceeded to do drugs alcoholically. And I was like, there it is, that's so me. Like, as soon as I found something that took the pain away or made me feel a certain way, I wanted more of it, and even more after that. You know, because this is what happens when I take one, what happens when I take two. It should be doubly nice. But eventually we ended up in this home with no power. We were in such a dangerous situation. I had placed myself and my kids in such a dangerous situation where we were involved in people that I had no control over anything, you know, and I wanted to leave so badly, but I also wanted to keep doing what I was doing behind closed doors, and that was drinking and using. So my love for the drugs and the drink, completely, my obsession for it, completely overthrew all of my mother instincts. Like, that love that I had for my children, that was nothing compared to my need to be okay, if you want to put it that way. So I stayed for much longer than I should have, but eventually I got us out of there, even while I was ready to give up the drinks and the drugs finally, just to get us to safety. I packed up all my shit and I moved to my mom's house again. So I removed myself and my kids from the danger and the drugging and the drinking and the chaos, and what I found like a month or two later is that I was worse off when I was in a loving home, surrounded by love, my mother and my kids, people who wanted to help me. I was worse off. I was unhappy. I was drinking and using all the time. I couldn't go 45 minutes of my day without putting some substance into my body. I could not live with myself. I was bursting out in tears. I was freaking out on people. I was just a horrible person, you know, and it felt like I was slowly committing suicide, and there was nothing I could do about it. I thank God today for that experience, because if I didn't have that experience, I would probably still to this day think that I can in some small way control my drinking and using. I know now for a fact that I can't, because it doesn't matter how hard I wanted to stop, I couldn't. And I knew my body was like slowly giving in on me. I weighed like nothing. It's quite funny, people at the rehab were taking bets. Is she on heroin or does she have an eating disorder? I was that skinny when I got put in. You know, I was sick, and it took me like 2 hours in the morning just to put on enough makeup, hair extensions, and some baggy clothes to look okay. But I was getting to the point where not even that helped. I was that skinny. And I just felt like I was going to die. Eventually I prayed to God. You know, I felt like I was cut off from God, and my prayers were going up against the roof. It felt like they were just bouncing around up there. This God, I didn't even know who this God was. He couldn't even hear me, you know. I was just praying to myself, and it didn't help, but yet I still prayed. And I started praying. I went on my knees and I prayed for exposure, that God would expose me in some way. Sure, I didn't want to get caught using and abusing drugs and alcohol, but at that point I kind of didn't care, because I couldn't help myself anymore. And as God would have it, eventually my mother intervened, and I'm so thankful for that. She sat me down and she asked me if I needed help, and in my mind I couldn't even just ask for help. It was like drinking and using was the only thing that came to mind when I wanted to ask for help, but I couldn't get past that. And when she asked me if I needed help, I said yes. I immediately said yes, because I knew, like, show's over. You know, I've reached a point of no return. Like, I don't want to be there anymore. I'm going to die soon, and I need a way out. So she took me to the exact same place where I took this ex-boyfriend of mine a few years back, and I kind of just burst out crying because I thought to myself, there's a glimpse maybe of this God that I prayed to. He knew I've always wanted to come here. Maybe he did hear me, you know. So I felt in my first day of like rehab a sort of a glimpse of hope, which was cool, and it was weird because I got there and these people were sitting in circles and praying, and I really thought that it was a cult, and but I was at the point of being so broken that I was like, no, fuck it, I'll take it, you know. I was that desperate. I needed help that much, so I kind of just surrendered myself over to the process, and it was probably one of the hardest things I ever had to do. You know, I'm an alcoholic, I'm selfish, I'm self-centered, I know everything, you can't tell me nothing, and now I need to ask for help in every single area of my life. Every thought that comes into my mind is skewed a little bit, and now I have to expose those thoughts to people and talk about how I feel. I don't even know how I feel, but I did my steps, and step one was incredibly powerful to me. I wrote so much. I think I almost wrote a whole book just on step one. Just getting all that shit from all the years out of me felt so good already, and it was staring me right in the face like I'm the problem. I'm creating all of my own problems. My way of solving problems are not the correct way. I can't use alcohol as my solution to every problem. It's just going to get me dead and unhappy at the end of the day. So I did my step one wholeheartedly, and I wrote everything that I could. My step two, I kind of feel I skimmed over because I was like, oh yeah, I know God, and I have no problem believing in this God. Although when I did go to, we had these classes in the rehab, and eventually it came out the solution is God. But I was like, you're kidding me, right? God, that guy does not like me. I'm cut off from him. There's like no connection there. Now you're telling me I need to pray to a God that I don't even understand or know what it's about. Like, that dude hates me. But anyway, I was told to be open-minded and willing, and I had nothing left to lose. Like, I was going to lose my kids if I drank and used again. You know, I was on the brink of losing all the outside stuff. On the inside, I already lost it all. So I really had nothing more left to lose. So I kind of just handed myself over, and I believed in the old God that I believed in, that judgmental dude. But I had a power higher than myself, which was okay, and that's all you really need. You don't even have to know what it is, because till this day I don't even know what God is. You know, the concept, my mind is too small to grasp that concept. But anyway, step three was great, and I actually had this experience, a spiritual experience with my steps when I was in treatment. Like, things would happen in my step one, and I would realize my powerlessness as I was doing my questions. Step two, I was like, okay, yeah, God, I know you. Okay, moving along. Step three, I had to really practice faith and handing over. And by that time, Neville had come back into our lives, and he was trying to build a relationship with the kids because he had found out that I was in treatment, and I didn't want that at all. And my sponsor just kept telling me, Dane, you're in rehab. There's nothing you can do about it. You have to hand this over to God. So I really had to practice the steps while I was in treatment, you know, and I truly believe that I had a spiritual experience with them that brought about that psyche change that they talk about, for my perception to change and for me to be more open-minded. Step four was really hard, but I did it anyway. You know, that fear is a moral inventory of yourself. I got to look at my part in all of this, and as a result, I got to let go of a lot of crap that I've been holding on to all these years that makes me sick. Like, I fully believe the resentment and the stress and everything, it manifests itself in my body eventually, and I walk around with muscle spasms and tummies that are not great. It manifests in that way, and I literally felt like there was a mountain lifted off my shoulders, which was great, and the pink cloud was really great, although I do feel I didn't let go of all of it. But as my sponsor tells me now, that it's okay and that's how it works. God reveals to me what He needs me to see when I'm ready. So during my first step 5, I couldn't see all of the stuff that I had done. I could only see what I was ready to see. And that came to light and I could let it go. Now I've got a couple of more for my next step 5, but we'll get there when we get there. You know, my new sponsor will help me work through it and I can really start to grow further. Thank you. And I can grow further. And it was a cool experience just to be able to see, oh God, I play a part in all of this. It's my fault, actually. But I now have a chance to do things better. And I got this list of defects, and I was like, okay, cool, I can work with this. And I also got a list of like good things about me. And I was like, okay, cool, I can work with this. At least now I know what is truly wrong with me. It's like I have a disease, and it lives in my mind, it's got a life of its own, it's attached to my ego, and it wants to fight, and it wants to win, and it doesn't want to just let go, let God, and live life, and let things unfold. You know, it made so much sense to me when I found this program, and not just knowing what's wrong with me, but knowing that there are others. I could so relate to, people said it's not the drugs and alcohol, it's the behavior. And I struggled with that at first because, you know, you go in and you don't think, oh, it's me. I have a drug and alcohol problem. But as people were starting to share in meetings, like the things that their minds were doing and how they were seeing the world, like this one guy shared, and I'll never forget it, like he had this bird that visited him every day while he was using, and this bird was a spy. You know, and how this bird just freaked him out because somebody sent this bird to watch him, and I could 100% relate to that. In fact, every morning we had this great spiritual teacher, John Tate, which gave us a class in the mornings, and there were always these 2 black birds that came to the window, and I was like, who are they here for? You know, it's crazy things like that that my mind does, and if you share it, I can relate to it. So I started seeing, oh, okay. We're not normal, we're insane, which is okay because I now kind of had like a label to put on there, and I knew what I was working with, and I got given kind of this handbook, which is the AA book, you know. Here's a book, read it, there's steps, if you have a problem, follow them 1 to 12, you'll be okay. And I was like, it's so simple, you've got to be kidding me. How did I get this lucky to find this program? I must be one of the lucky ones, and I truly believe today that I am. You know, my second year was hard, it was really hard, but if it wasn't for people before me sharing that their second year was their make or break year, and it was really hard to live life on life terms, and good friends sharing their experience with me, I wouldn't be where I am today, because my second year was hard, man. I went through the pandemic with my children. I had 2 jobs, I had to work from home, I had to balance being a mother, work, pandemic stuff. It was crazy, and it kind of all just feels like a blur. You know, time is irrelevant in my mind at this point. But it was really hard, and for the most part, I had to work my program so hard every single day. Eventually, I did end up like in emotional turmoil, like so emotionally unmanageable. I didn't know whether I was going to make it or not. You know, I was so scared of relapsing. Even though I still did all the things that I needed to do, you know, like go on my knees in the morning, hand over my will in my life, do my meetings, speak to my sponsor, do some step work, all of that stuff. I was doing that. Some days I would just do it just to tick the boxes, you know, like, okay, I'll be okay, I did all the shit today. And otherwise I would do it because I really had to. But I still ended up in this emotional mess, didn't know what was going on with me, and the disease was kind of just so overpowering. And my sponsor sent me a share on emotional sobriety, and that night when I listened to that share, I realized that I was still so emotionally unsober. You know, my body might be sober, but what it comes down to is that emotional sobriety and growing up. You know, I still feel like a kid trapped in a woman's body, having to be a mom and that, but emotional sobriety is the thing that I'm trying to attain in my recovery. It's not just the physical sobriety, because I've seen people been dry for like 30 years and they're the unhappiest bastards on earth, and I've seen people clean or sober for a year and they're like so happy. You know, it's that emotional sobriety, and what I keep feeding my spirit needs to be that. So I kind of had to surrender my thought life again and the inside stuff. The first time in treatment I handed over all the outside stuff and some of the inside stuff. This time I had to hand over all of the inside stuff again, which I did, and I restarted my steps, and it has been like this incredible experience all over again. So yeah, I'm going to stop there. I feel like I'm pretty empty. I'm grateful to be here, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to share. Thanks,
Dane.